Welcome to BreakTheBoardSports.com. I'm your host, RJ Cash. Diving into Thursday night football, we're going to go through the Packers Redskins game there on Thursday night on Amazon. Going to be a good one. We're also going to touch on NC State Wake Forest. Look ahead to Friday's card. We got 3 college football games: Colorado, Houston, K-State, and Arizona. And then the nightcap, New Mexico and UCLA. So we're going to run through all those and look at the betting trends and angles. Again, you can go to our notes blog section at breaktheboardsports.com. It's totally free. Quick hitter betting notes, not a bunch of paragraphs and jargon to get lost in. If you want our plays, we had a great week in football, 24-9 across college and pro. We will have that $1.37 a day for a whole calendar year. You get all the sports, baseball with the playoffs. You'll get the NBA, college hoops. You'll get every play we give. On top of that, 4-0 last night in baseball. Let's go ahead and start off NFL. Let's dive into this Green Bay Packers Washington Redskin game. Packers 3.5-point favorite right now. Over under sits at 48.5. Now, right now, betting splits here on Wednesday, 58% of bets and 63% of the money is on the Packers, 42% of bets and 37% of handle on the Redskins. When you talk about that over under 48.5, dead even, 52% tickets and 52% money on the over. So that's dead even. And then same dead even with the under, 48 and 48. So everything kind of mixed right there in the middle when you talk about the betting splits as far as the over-under is concerned. Diving into some trends here, the Redskins 5-2 ATS their last 7 games. They covered week 1 as a 6.5-point home favorite. Well, it got down to 5.5 in some spots, but they rushed for over 200 yards against the Giants. And the Packers, they obviously handled business with the Lions, ending that losing streak to them. Washington, 8-1 straight up their last 9 games. Green Bay, 12-6 straight up their last 18. Green Bay, 6-3 ATS their last 9 games overall. The under has cashed 4 of the last 6 games the Packers have played in, but the over is cashed head-to-head. When these two teams meet up, the over is cashed 5 of the last 7. I think the big thing for me in this one is, can Washington run the football for over 200 yards like they did last week against the Giants? Remember, a lot of people didn't think the Giants would be good. I was one of them, but I did think their defensive line would be the strong suit and one of the stronger in the NFL. Just didn't expect Russell Wilson to be good, which he wasn't. But when you look ahead to this, the Packers defense is young. They got a lot of weapons there. Gary and Parsons on the outside. That secondary is tough. I don't think you're going to be able to see Washington run the ball quite as effectively as they did last week. Counter that, Washington's defense, again, you played Russell Wilson and an anemic offense. The Packers are loaded. Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is one of the 2-3 best backs in the NFL. And then you look at that receiving core with Reed. Like they just got weapons. Dobbs, they got guys all over the yard. Young guys, fast guys, they can work it underneath. Love what Matt LaFleur does, which he should have been the head coach, him or McVay. You know, at one time, Washington had Kyle Shanahan, McVay, and Matt LaFleur, and somehow we end up with a bozo like Dan Quinn. And you might say, oh, how can you talk bad about Dan Quinn? Look at the year he had last year. This is what Dan Quinn does. He has one good year at a place, a la Atlanta. Allah has a good year defensive coordinator of the Cowboys until it counts and then gets smashed by the Packers. Listen, I think the Packers take this game on the money line. I know minus 180 is a bit to chew off. You know what I mean? Maybe you put them with another favorite on Sunday, but the Packers get across the finish line. As far as the spread is concerned, I'm still a little on the fence about that. A couple more trends. Washington and Green Bay head-to-head. We talked about the overs cash 5 of the last 7. Well, Washington 4-8 straight up the last 12 against Green Bay, but they're 4-1 against the spread. So obviously, if you could find a 4 popped out around there, that would be a good number to fall on. But 3.5, I can see where you would want to take the value with Washington for sure in that matchup. No, there's not a coach in the league better than covering than Matt LaFleur early in the season. The past 3 seasons, he's 16-3 ATS, including 8-0 ATS at home against Lambeau. Matt LaFleur is within the first 3 games of the year. So first 3 games in the year, since 2019. Matt LaFleur, 60-3 ATS, 8-0 at Lambeau. It's really, really hard to get behind. Jordan Love, he didn't go down at all last week. Washington's going to have to get pressure with that front four, or it's going to be a long day for them. Packers, that quick hitting offense. LaFleur likes that tight underneath stuff. Josh Jacobs, he scored a TD in 10 consecutive games for the Packers. So obviously he's a weapon that you got to look out for. So a lot that Washington's defense, they weren't challenged last week playing that New York Giants team. I think they're going to have their hands full. Look, Green Bay is as good as advertised and maybe even a little bit better. If Jordan Love can play the way he did last week, sky is the limit for them. As far as a couple other trends to get into, Washington 7-4 straight up on the money line there in their last 11 games. If you've been blindly following that, you got 8.75 units up, about a 52% return on your investment. Packers, they come on late. Second half has been a friend of theirs. They've covered the second half spread 6 of the last 8 contests at Lambeau. That would have put you up 4.18 units, 48% return on your investment. Washington, games they've played in over the last 22, 14-8 to the over. If you had been betting the over in all their games in the last 22, you'd be 14-8, 5.2 units up, 22% ROI on that one. The Packers, they've hit the first half game total over 7 of the last 10 at home. So again, hit the over in the first half, second half, they're a covering machine, but that would put you up 3.4 units, a 28% return on your investment for that game. Again, I think it's really going to depend on the run game. Can Washington run the ball like they did against the Giants? My guess is going to be they are not. The Packers, I think that Washington secondary is very weak. Marshawn Lattimore is highly overrated, has been his whole career. I think you're going to see him get exposed. I don't think the Packers are going to have a problem scoring points. Jalen Daniels, he rushed for 68 yards last week. Deebo Samuel was able to get free. I will say this, Cliff Kingsbury will keep Washington in the game. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the game, top 3 or 4 offensive mind for sure. And I think Jalen Daniels is an extremely gifted athlete, and I think he's really, really special if they can keep him upright. But I think Parsons and Gary, I still got questions on that Washington offensive line. The best thing we can do as bettors and handicappers is not have recency bias. In other words, you can't really put a whole lot of stock in that what happened in the last week, right? It's got to be a trend thing. And because if you follow your eyes, like, betting public, I think it was the top 11 games handle-wise, the public was 1-10 against the spread. Books raked up, public got destroyed. Usually that's opposite. Usually the public dominates the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then you see the book really get on a roll and tear it up. So you just want to be really careful. I think this is a tight game. I do think the Packers get the win. I understand if you don't want to lay $1.80 on the money line for sure. If you look, though, over at FanDuel, possibly a couple things you could do a little bit different is, that $1.80, it's actually up to $1.84 right now. But you could take the Packers and get it down to $1.34, parlaying it with the Ravens money line. I think that's good value. Again, I'm a big 7-point teaser. A lot of people are going to be, whine and cry about juice. Juice only matters if you're losing. Okay, let's just get that rate. It's all about units. I understand that, but you still got to pick winners. I think a 7-point teaser, and people say, well, why not do a 6-point? Because I'm getting screwed on the extra point, right? You're not really getting a touchdown. Now, if it's a key number situation, 4, 7, 10, 11, 13, 14, like typical numbers it would fall on. If it's a dead number like 9, no, I would take the 6-pointer and just get to 8.5 instead of 9.5, right? But I love the 7-pointers, had huge success. We've had a great run with that over the years. I think Washington +7 in a 7-point 2-team -140 teaser. You could get Washington +10.5, which to me would be excellent, and put him with somebody. You could put him with somebody like Detroit at a pick'em spot. You could put him with somebody Looking down through here, another one you could put them with somebody like the Chiefs plus 8.5 at home, and you might say, well, the Eagles are going to crush the Chiefs. We'll get into that game tomorrow on our short that comes out. But I got to tell you, that's a really scary game that everybody's all over the Eagles, and the line hasn't moved 1.5. They're begging you to bet Philly. I get it. I'm not saying I'm going with the Chiefs. No way, no how. I'm betting the Chiefs against the Eagles on the spread 1.5. But I'm just telling you, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of heartache after that game because the whole world's going to be on Philly. And don't be surprised if Andy Reid in Kansas City run something up. Look what Dallas was able to do. You know, I know Jalen Hurts and them are special, but Dallas's defense, remember this, is not supposed to be good. Right. And I know the delay and all that stuff. It was kind of a weird situation, right? But the reality is they still held Philly to 24 points, and the Chiefs' defense is better. So, again, I know the Chiefs got manhandled from start to finish by the Chargers. I know the Eagles' defense rose up, and they didn't even have Jalen Carter. I get all that. Just be very careful with recency bias. I would say the same thing about Washington. I know they've been electric, but they had a lot of things go their way. I think on a short week, going to Lambeau, Packers minus, it's up to 184 now, so you definitely got to find a dance partner. But you could put them with Baltimore. Baltimore's not losing that game at home against Cleveland, minus $1.34. Again, I think that's great value when you look into that. We got those trends, those notes on the Packers Redskins will be up. BreakTheBoardSports.com. Go to the notes blog section. You'll have quick hitter notes to help you become a better handicapper. That's what we're really about. We're about you being able to be a better handicapper and not have to pay a bunch of touts and services, right? I do offer plays. It's $1.37 a day for 365 days a year or $64.99 a month. 4-0 in baseball yesterday. So far, we're off to a good start with the Brewers, up 2-0 back-to-back home runs. And college football has been really, really good to us. So you can check that out if you want. We have our show here every Monday, Thursday, 10:30. Monday morning quarterback show, going over the weekend, talking about that, talking about open lines. Thursday, pregame kickoff show where we dive into each and every game. We'll be doing that tomorrow, diving into every NFL game, breaking it down. And we got some shorts coming up. Early college football will come out tomorrow. So you'll be able to have that, breaking down Clemson, Georgia Tech, breaking down Alabama, Wisconsin. So that 12, 3:30 block. And then you'll get another one on Friday morning. That's really good. We dive into LSU, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Just a great week of football ahead. Again, BreakTheBoardSports.com is where you go for that. Want to switch over now. We're going to talk about college football. Let's hit these 4 games before we get out of here for the week. Again, this is our weekday short that we have on YouTube. Please click the like and subscribe. NC State right now, 7.5-point favorite at Wake Forest. 53% of bets going by way of NC State and 49% of the handle. 47% of the bets for Wake Forest, 51% of the handle. Your over-under sets at 52.5. Everybody pounding the over. 65% of tickets, 83% of the money goes NC State's way on the over. The under, 35% of tickets to the under, 17% of the handle flowing that way. When you look into some trends here for this game, listen, NC State was very fortunate. I felt like Virginia, we gave out NC State last week on the money line minus $1.30. And I got to tell you, through the first half, I wasn't feeling really good. NC State finally got it rolling, finally started to get the ball down the field, did some good things, and were able to eventually pull away. I think this one, interstate rivalry, is going to be a little tougher for NC State. They're 5-11 ATS their last 16 games overall. Wake Forest, not a ton better, 2-4 ATS. Wake Forest 6-13 straight up their last 19. 1-6 ATS the last 7 at home. The over has hit in NC State's 5 of their last 6 games against ACC foes. But here's the one that really gets me. North Carolina State, 2-11 ATS, its last 13 games at Wake Forest. That is just an absolute incredible stat when you really think about it. Think about it. 2-11 against the spread the last 13 times these two teams have hooked up. That to me is pretty crazy. Last year, Wake Forest got the win at NC State, 34-30. Before that, the 2 years before, NC State walked the dog on them a little bit, 26-6. Back to 2022, they won 30-21. The year before that, 2021, Wake Forest 45-42 on that one. Now, if you dive in a little bit closer here on this game, and just click over here to my notes. And again, all these notes will be up on breaktheboardsports.com. As far as offensively, points scored, NC State ranked 62nd in the country. Wake Forest ranked 22nd in the country. As far as that goes, the last 10 that these two teams have faced each other has been a dead split, both record on that one. Points scored head-to-head, NC State averaging 29.8, Wake Forest 28.2. So definitely been an even tight thing. Wake Forest 2-0 to open up their season. NC State 2-0 as well. Now, NC State, they don't usually, under Coach Jordan, get off to a very good start. 1-8-1 ATS the last 10 games that they've played in September. Again, we talked about NC State really struggles to cover on the struggle bus. 5-11 ATS their last 16. But again, I'm going to keep hammering it home. 2-11 against the spread. The last 13 games they've had to go to Wake Forest. That's just incredible. Now, straight up, Wake Forest has struggled 2-10 straight up its last 12 versus the ACC. The under is hit 4 of the last 6 games in the month of September for Wake Forest. The thing here, though, when you look at that straight up part, you don't really have to worry about that all that much because you're not asking Wake Forest to win the game. We're getting over the touchdown with the hook plus 7.5. Wake Forest, to me, is the side here. It's either Wake Forest or nothing. Again, you have to have rules in betting to be a good handicapper. You can't just fire off at everything, right? And one of those rules that I have for myself is you don't lay points and you don't lay a bunch of juice on the road, right? Juice, sometimes in baseball, you're forced to. But as far as football, laying points on the road, I see this all the time. People are like, I don't want to lay $1.60. I don't want to lay $1.70 on the road, so I'm going to lay the 3.5 or 4. Well, what happens? The team that was favored wins by 1 to 3 points somewhere in there. They kick a field goal at the end and they scooch by. Or they win by 1 because the other team goes for 2 at the end because they want to knock off a big dog. I see it time and time again. And not wanting to lay juice costed you that win in the win column. So something you got to be very, very careful of. I don't think it's a perfect science one way or the other, folks. I'm not saying that. But I do think there's a balance there where you have to be open. And when you take a shot, take a calculated shot and just not firing. Again, it's a numbers game. There is some feel to it, but definitely a numbers game. Colorado at Houston. Colorado is a 5.5-point underdog to the Cougars. Colorado got all kinds of questions about who's going to start at quarterback. I don't think any of us really know. I don't even know if Coach Prime knows at this point what he's doing there, as it seems to shift around. Your over-under is set at 44.5 in this one. Now, Colorado 9-3-1 ATS their last 13 games. Colorado 4-1 against the spread their last 5 on the road. Houston, they've covered the last 5 of the last 7 times, but 7-13 straight up their last 20, with the under cashing in 7 straight games at home for Houston with that under. The over-under right now, as we said, setting at 44.5 in that one. When you look deeper into the game, as far as ranks, you got Houston ranked 5th in the country on defense right now. Offensively, Colorado ranked 85th. So some discrepancy there for sure. I don't know how good Houston is. And again, all kinds of quarterback problems there for Colorado. It's hard to really get a read and see how good they really are right now. If I had to pick a side, I would lean to Coach Prime and the Buffs catching the 5.5. But I would much rather have 6.5. If I could get a 6.5, I'd probably buy the hook to 7 and take it. At 5.5, it's just not somewhere I want to dance with. Kansas State at Arizona, big one here. Kansas State has really struggled. 0-5 ATS their last 5 games. However, straight up 13-7, straight up their last 20. They're 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games on the road, and 1-5 against the spread their last 6 games versus Big 12 opponents, and they just absolutely had one heck of a stinker there with Army last week. Arizona, not much better versus the Big 12, 1-7 against the spread their last 8 games against Big 12 opponents. Look, this to me is do or die for Kansas State. They were picked to finish first by a lot of people, at no worse third in the Big 12. Right now, Kansas State 1.5 point favorite, 54.5 is the over-under in that one. Last year, Kansas State at home beat up Arizona 31-7. Again, Kansas State, if they don't win this game, they can kiss any hope of a Big 12 title goodbye. That would give them 0-2 in the Big 12 with a very rough slate ahead. Kansas State has hit the first quarter game total under in 9 of their last 13. If you have been following that trend, you'd be up 4.3 units, a 29% return on your investment. Consequently, Arizona's hit the game total under 5 of the last 7. That's a strong 5 of the last 7 their games at home would put you up 2.8 units, 36% return on your investment. Kansas State right now, it's a pick 'em for the first quarter. They've covered the spread 3 of the last 5 on the road, would put you up 2.2 units, 37% return on your investment on that one. When we look back to the betting splits as far as this game goes, 79% of the handle and 64% of the bets on the Arizona Wildcats. Everybody loving them. Kansas State, only 36% of bets, 21% of money. I think that Army loss is really, really swayed this line a lot. You're over under 54.5, 60% of tickets to the over, 40% of tickets to the under. Consequently, the money flips, same numbers, just flips, 40% of the handle to the over, 60% of the handle to the under. Going back to that Colorado-Houston game, apologize, missed the betting splits on that for you. Colorado, 85% of bets and 78% of the handle, 15% of bets and 22% of the handle to the Houston Cougs. Again, breaktheboardsports.com. Click us a like down there. That's your rundown for college football weekday and your Thursday night football. Again, Packers money line is something I dance with. Kansas State, I think they're in a must-win situation. We'll have our shorts for early college football Saturday. Tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. live, we'll have our college and NFL weekend pregame kickoff show going through every game in the NFL. We'll touch on a couple of the major college ones, but we'll go through every NFL game on the slate. And then tomorrow afternoon, you will have your MLB baseball rundown. Every day we run down through the MLB baseball card. Break the Board Sports. I'm your host, RJ Cash. Have a great day. Happy handicapping.